the procedure of budgeting, which we've been doing until I don't know whether the law has passed, but until last month or 2 months ago, was you roll over, you call it a rollover. So anything that was not funded, it's put quote unquote rollover, but it actually, there is no resource for it. But because it was budgeted, you cannot pull it out of the budget. So over the years, you keep rolling over things, and with time that grows. And so you end up with eventually a problem of pending bills because you committed, but there was no resources for it. I think, just to put it simply. But now, because of the new budgeting method, I think is a zero balance method. You're not supposed to be rolling over. If something wasn't funded, you start again from zero, and you either rebudget for it, but you don't carry it as a budget item, yet you had no resources in the exchequer to fund it. I don't know whether I have been clear about it.
You could be explaining a different matter. But Auditor General, was that explanation proffered during your audit?
Chair, if I may, before the auditor goes, Madam Governor, there is a written response that you have submitted to that query, and it talks about actual closing balances in the CRF. It looks like you're explaining something totally different from what your written response is saying.
Okay, I was trying to explain, we were told to be simple, to explain it in a way that...
in fact, the language here is simpler than the things you have said. The language in the written response, to me, is simpler.
I was explaining the word rolled over. The word rolled over means that you have put them in the budget, but it's not, they were not funded. There was no money to fund those things. So you carried them over to the next year as something that should have been funded, but is not funded. But I can read the management response.
No, I think we have it on record. Auditor General, what is your recommendation?
We are lost. You know the explanation that the governor is putting before us is quite different from what the Auditor General is saying. And we still insist that we are supposed to get guidance from the Auditor General. I think that's where we're going to get a solution.
Yeah, Oeji, what is your recommendation on this? To me, it looked like a bookkeeping issue, but through the explanations, it's now sounding like we have different interpretations. But what do you recommend? And tell us whether there's lawfulness and effectiveness in reporting or in utilization of those funds.
So before the director responsible for the region comes in, I want to say that this is an issue that cuts across several counties. Return to CRF issues, they're talking about where a county is struggling to include figures in their budget, and the budget is not realistic. The source of funding is not the source of the revenue. The source of funding for whatever they want to spend on that, shown in the budget, is not clear. So, return to CRF issues. We're talking about figures coming from the previous year. The activities were not funded, but then now they want to include the same figures which were not funded in the previous year in the current year's budget. And in the process, these amounts keep on accumulating because they may have started projects, but which were not funded in the previous year. So the recommendation will be the accounting officer then should prepare a realistic budget, identify a source of funding, and put those figures in the budget before the budget is approved. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, you are still not telling us about efficiency, effectiveness, and lawfulness on this particular matter. Because if it's a bookkeeping issue, if it's a matter of philosophy, that can be dealt with by the accountants. Of course, you'll be going into accrual accounting. Is this problem going to be there?
Chair, in fact, it's very interesting because, as you know, I'm also an accounting officer somewhere. And year on year, because we have a legal entitlement to financing as political parties, our budgets always reflect the money that we expect. And we have run into problems with the OAG because they tell us to prepare realistic budgets. At least for me, I have the backing of the law, because the law says you'll give me 0.3% of the last audited revenues or income for the country. Where is the basis for this for Kirinyaga? That is what they should tell us. What is the basis for you to provide for this amount when it has not been funded before? Where are you expecting to get it? I think that's the question, Governor. For me, I can hide behind the political parties fund or the act. What is the justification for you to repeatedly put these monies on your books when you do not have a clear source of that money?
Governor, and then we come back to OAG for the conclusive statement on lawfulness, effectiveness, professionalism, all that. Then we'll make our recommendation.
I think this will be resolved when the issue of the accrual comes in, because it's usually under the pressure of the county assemblies, or if you, well, the push and pull is between the priorities that you have started, maybe a project, and then the people think that it's maybe taking too much resource and they want money, let's say in ward funds or in bursary. So what happens is that counties, so that they balance the budget, they put all those things that are half budgeted in there, and also the new demands are also included. Then what you do is you up your revenue. So if your revenue, for example, was 400 last year, you say you'll collect 600, even if you know very well that that may not be realistic, just to balance and to make sure that there is the issue. Then now you end up now with a rollover at the end of the financial year, because you didn't collect the 600, you maybe just collected 420 or 430, because the realistic growth in a year would be maybe 30, 40 million. And then now you have that balance in between. Then the next year again, you have the tussle. It usually would come if there is too much and you want peace, you just say that's the truth. If you say we won't fund, then the budget won't pass, then you get into an impasse and all that. So the solution to this problem is the issue of the zero-based budgeting. If we stop doing the accrual, the cash, and we do the accrual, so that at the beginning of the financial year, you're told, if you have a project that is going on, that is the priority to fund, and you cannot introduce new things. And you also be realistic on your revenue. If your revenue was, let's say, 400 million, you can't say next year it will be 700, because where is it going to come from? You know very well you won't achieve it. You're only writing it so that now all the projects are funded, and that's why we end up with stalled projects, because then this one is only funded 20%, the new one is also funded 10%, and then it's a problem going on. And I have raised it, I think, previously, even like 2 years ago, on the problem that we have with the budgeting. But that is now paraphrasing, which is now the response we've written here. But I think in my county, I actually told them even before the accrual that I will not be allowing budgets with rollovers. So if something wasn't funded, either remove it completely from the budget or provide for adequate resources to implement, and don't introduce new projects. It is not an easy process, but it will come with time and capacity building and that issue of accrual.
Yeah, we'll soon be looking at about 4 or 5 of those stalled projects in the main executive report. Vice Chair, and then Senator Ambua, then we get guidance from the OAG.
No, the governor has just said that it will come with capacity building. Capacity building on who? On the budget officer or on the MCAs, so that they can make realistic budgets. Because you cannot tell me that the accounts are showing we have 42 million, and then you just say that we did not fund 614 million projects. So we are putting that figure there over and above the 42 million that is available. So who needs capacity to be built so that we can have really realistic budgets?
Governor, or do you want to tie your question to
That's simple.
Okay. Yeah.
So I want then the governor to just clarify that what she has said is that she knows, and a lot of governors know, that the figures that they include in their budgets are just supposed to be that, just figures, as a way of managing political pressure from from MCAs when they know very well that they don't have the revenues to fund their projects. Is that what the governor is telling us? That it's just a way of managing pressure, put figures there, would wing the MCAs that things will happen, but of course, they will not happen.
Governor?
Chair, it's not actually a hoodwink. You get into the conversation back and forth until a point when the deadline for budget must be submitted, and you leave it. Because when you say it's not possible, you know what happens. You get into a stalemate. In fact, for Kirinyaga County at the time, we even ended up in court with these budgets when I tried to balance. And I think we came before you, Chair, and I think, I'm not sure whether it was Sifuna, but I think it was you. We brought a dispute on the budget balancing. Eventually, you get exhausted and you decide, you know what, just pass it. We know we will not finish any of these projects. Instead of finishing a project up to the end, you end up just doing 20% or 30%, and this one 20%, another one 10%, another one 20%. So you end up with all these projects that are not getting complete because you do not just fund one thing, finish it, and then move to the next. It's really, and it's not to hoodwink. It is managing political aspirations, because they say that if you don't start that project on the ground, then they have a difficulty with the people that project is not going. So even if you won't finish it this year, just start it so that the people can see it is started. And then now we continue, even if it takes 3-4 years. So they are also managing their politics. You're also trying to manage the governance. It's a really tricky situation. And it happens, I think, even at the national level, because that issue of accrual versus cash must be addressed at a legal level for all of us to just start budgets at zero-based budgeting, where you say, how much money do you have? And then what do you budget on that money? And you cannot add. So even if it's a stalled project or a project that is ongoing, if you need to continue, you fund it afresh, but don't call it rollover, because calling it rollover is just a figure you have put in the budget with no money, with no actual tangible money to spend the project.
You know, Governor, what you and I owe this country is to go back to the law and make the necessary adjustments. The budget impasse you talked about, it came to my committee in the last parliament when I was chairing the devolution committee. And you raised significant issues that needed to be addressed, perhaps with the possibility of amending the laws. But then mulikutana kando ya tent na MCAs, and you resolved the problem for that moment without resolving the problems of law. So it's still with us. But maybe let me allow the senators, because we are more substantive.
Before senior counsel Dulo talks, there is no other explanation other than what Senator Wambua just presented. This is just a woodwind game, and I think we are going to consume it as it is, because I don't think there is anything that is tangible that this committee can consume as far as this view is here. The auditor just ran away. He doesn't want to give any advice on what is the take of this kind of money that is being floated here. And the governor is trying to, all through, she has been trying to manage a crisis. Right? I think the whole idea of share is just a woodwind game. Nothing else that this committee is ready to consume.
I thought budget should be a science, but it's turning out to be an art of balancing a lot of interest. Senator Adulo.
Chair, I just wanted to ask the governor, having been there for some time, and I think it is wrong for us just to hit to political pressure and coming up with projects that are not useful to the people, and also we don't get value for the money. What do you think will be a solution to this? Because if you finish your term, I'm sure the guy who is coming in or the lady who is coming in might leave the projects that you have started idle. How can we solve this problem? Because it's happening everywhere. And I think we are having also pending bills year after year. We have even looked at your budget. I mean, your pending bills is about 1.2 billion even currently. You carried over about 600, if I'm not wrong, from the previous years. So how do we solve this problem? Maybe a solution that we can deal with. Thank you.
Senator Sifuna?
Yeah, first, Chair may prefer such conversations to other conversations where we're just papering over issues, because we're all politicians and we know what happens. In fact, Senator Wambua was whispering here now he's reconsidering.
No.
These are the decisions he has to make.
He has to make those decisions. When some of us say we have no interest in being governors, it's because of the things that are going on in our counties. The solution for me has always been with the Senate and with the national government. First of all, we need to fully fund it, devolution. We need to give counties enough money, sufficient resources for all the functions that have been devolved. The problem with our governors is that, as you said, Chair, when we sit together and we say we want to push a certain line, you guys always prefer behind the tent solutions, and they're temporary solutions. So, for instance, we will sit with as a Senate and say, this financial year, like my position is very clear. If we don't get 450 billion, there will be problems. But then you see the chair of COG, they have gone to State House, they have agreed on something else there. We are here fighting for you to get RMLF. You go and sit with the members of the county, the National Assembly. You do another deal at the side there. Then you leave us looking like the people who are unreasonable. But if we fully fund counties, there'll be timely releases of exchequer. Then there's a law that is actually before the Senate on ward development, so that every ward has their kitty and they can decide for themselves what their priority areas are. You give them, you say, this ward, you have 50 million this year. What you do with that money now, your priorities, it's up upon you. Because it is not possible for a governor to say she's going to take 80% of all the budget to finish projects, and maybe those projects are in just 2 or 3 wards, even if they are the priority for the county government. You'll run into problems with the other MCS. So if we were able to agree that for once, please let us fight these battles on the same side, I think you would have helped us, other than you coming in with stopgap measures and then the problems persist. I think that would be the solution, Chair.
Okay. Honorable members, finally, Senator.
Yes, this will be important because I think actually it's a former senator has put it so well. Chair, then that's a line that we take. Then my problem is, and we see it all over, is that you have so many white elephants and squirrels all over the world, funny projects, an ECD classroom that is 2% done for 10 years, some bow somewhere that has been drilled but no casing somewhere for 5 years, a market stall somewhere that has been constructed 5%. What we, at the end of the day, what we have is a situation where, yes, we have actually absorbed our budget. We have spent our development budget even at the required percentage, but there is nothing to show for it. Chair, devolution was never meant to ensure that you and I and the governor and the MCAs are elected to office. Devolution was meant to deliver services to people. This argument that we just have to do it so that we survive politically, Chair, is not a very good argument. In fact, and I'm very happy that the governor has brought it up, because perhaps other governors will not do it. And that is the truth, Chair. What you're having is a situation where in every county, in every ward, you have what I would call really low-value projects from the county governments that are never completed, that never help anyone, but the budgets have been absorbed. Chair, there must be a solution to that issue, I think.
Thank you. I think let's focus on, maybe Governor can give very brief comments on that, because you're going to see the effect of all this on pending bills. Already we have seen your aging analysis. You've got almost 600 million that has been pending for more than 5 years. We are going to see some of the projects that started in 2021 that have not been concluded. So we will deal with the specific cases. And this, I wish that this could have been the conversation that was going on at South Sea, where the members of County Assembly are convening today for the Legislative Summit. I was intending to go there to make an address. Senator Sifuna told that things have fallen apart. The president has not come, and they have rejected the person the president sent, and they have said no president, no summit. But I was hoping to go there and have a conversation around these things, because where the assembly accuses us of overreach, they forget that they're the ones with the power on budgets. If budgets are done wrongly at the beginning, then it falls on us to correct. You know, we just come in as politicians. But I think a lot of things have been raised of policy, of legislative amendments, and of procedure. I know if you go accrual, we will cure this. What's your final thoughts on this? Then we get the recommendation from the Director General, then we go to the specific instances.
Thank you, Chair. I should report here that we have agreed with the County Assembly that even if the law hasn't passed Kirinyaga this time round, we will not have rollovers. And we hope that we will manage by April 30th to hold on to that. But my proposal is threefold. One is the movement of the budget process from cash to accrual. This has been a conversation since the time I was in Treasury. The second is to have the word-based defined in law so that we are not having that push and pull, and then being very clear with regard to both the ward-based and the flagship projects that are done by the county, that you don't start any new projects until you have finished the ones that are ongoing, because that is really the challenge. Even if you allocate, we can end up starting new projects every year without finishing the ones that are there. And the third one is the separation of the financial system between the county executive and the county assembly. I think that will really reduce also the pressure where the money is allocated from here, so that we are not negotiating that money at the county level, so that the money that goes to the executive is money for development only, and that which is for running to the county assembly is already predefined. And then that would solve a lot of this problem and also reduce the friction between the county assembly and the executive. Thank you, Chair.
I guess the last link we have already dealt with. The Senate has already passed the necessary amendment to the PFM Act to provide for that autonomy for county assemblies. And those are the things that we would have reported, and we found a conducive environment to say those things today.
Actually, Chair, you know, I was the chief guest at the AGM for the CAF, and I did report all the legislative interventions that we as a Senate are taking in order to, solve some of those problems for you, like that financial autonomy. Even in reporting, you don't have to come here to explain how the assembly spent its money, and they don't have to chase after your CEC finance. I hear they play games with a form called Form C. You disappear in the county and the MCS find you. So those things, we will resolve them here. And this is why these conversations are important, Honorable Governor, so that we solve these problems together.
Yep.
But from the mood during that meeting of AGM, I was also very certain that today's meeting will not be very pleasant, because the president has made specific promises on the welfare of members of the county assembly. And if he is not going to fulfill those promises, he will have problems. And I suspect he knew that he would be asked about those statements, like we will be asking about our chapati machine in a few months. We'll give him a few months to get us that machine for chapatis, but we will ask questions. Yeah.
I think let's leave chapatis out of this and go back to the accounting. OAG, so what is your recommendation here? What did you recommend?
Chairman, very briefly, if you look at the financial statements on page 2 of that account, return to CRF issues, the county had budgeted 657 million, but when you look at the end, it's a column D, they only received 122 million. So you could see that budget was not realistic. And it's good, the High Excellency, the Governor, has made comments to the effect that how they've been budgeting, it has not been that realistic. So, Chairman, we do recommend that in future and going forward, let them prepare a very realistic budget, taking into account that once a year, because once the year closes, you don't expect to receive this money from government because the budget is prepared on a
But
cash basis.
Patrick, the cash basis, I agree, will solve some of these problems. You also have to address if the county government or the entity has sufficient reason to expect certain money. Like now, if there was supposed to be money that was to be received from Floka, for instance, or Nari GP, what is that? Yeah, how do we treat that? Because I'm asking this from a selfish perspective also, Chair. Because I told you I'm also an accounting officer, I have a legal expectation to receive money from the political parties fund. How can you tell me not to budget for that money when it is the law? Why can't you, instead of pushing us so much not to budget for money that we legally expect, you would rather do away with the law so that I have no expectation of that money? But for as long as the law says that you will give me 0.3% of your revenues, I will put it in the budget. And then Chair, I'm getting a bit involved because for the first time, my accounts were flagged with similar issues because I'm not having a realistic budget. Yet it is the law. I'm basing my budget on the law. And I'm not happy with OAG.
I mean, you have offered more explanation than the governor for Kirinyaga. Because if there were perhaps grants that were not disbursed, then that should have formed part of a response. That could be part of the reasons for unrealistic budgets. There's also the issue of timing of certain processes. When they start doing their budget review and outlook, county fiscal strategy papers, sometimes they do it before even concluded conversations on DORA and CARA. So and then sometimes they do it based on a political promise. Last week, it was said that counties are going to get 460 or 450 billion at KICC. So some counties might budget with that in mind. But the reality is that in BPS, it is 405. So a lot of these processes need to be aligned so that by the time counties are doing their budgets, they are sure of what they're getting. Sometimes, as I've said, if budgeting has become an art rather than a science, the numbers should add up. So,
Chair, I'll see on that. I think even if that were to be true, the variance in the budget should be almost commensurate with the amounts received. You cannot say that you have a variance of 1 billion, but when you sum up the amounts that were legally expected to be received are just a fraction of the variance that we have. There's still need for an explanation as to where that variance comes from.
Can I help by sharing experiences? Because, Senator, you will be encountering these things. If you look at the variance of the amount of money that is dispersed to parties vis-a-vis what is actually due to us, because everybody knows the audited revenues upon which budgets are based. So if the political parties act says 0.3% of that figure, ODM is expecting 2 billion in a financial year, but they send you 300 million Kenya shillings. So it depends on compliance with the law. And it cannot be the fault of the people who expect compliance with the law, because it is the law. It cannot be the fault of an entity that is expecting 3 billion under the law, and they only receive 10% of that. And then you say the variance is too wide. The circumstances also have to be looked into.
No, I don't think Senator Sifuna understood what I said. Maybe I should speak in Kikamba, doesn't understand Kikamba. I'm saying there's a variance of 1 billion. That's a shortfall, you know? But then when you sum up the amounts that were expected from government agencies, the total is almost what? It's 400 million plus 48 million plus 140 million plus 117 million. It doesn't add up to 1 billion. I'm saying there should be some semblance of harmony between the deficit that you are reporting and the amounts that you are expecting but did not receive.
correct. And if that were the case, then the governor would have broken it down. Governor?
If you allow me, Chair, to read the response.
Yes.
And then I'll paraphrase. The budget shortfall of 1 billion is due to lack of disbursements of funds from the National Treasury, as we did not receive the full exchequer amount of 617,400 as per the budget. That was one, so the delayed exchequer. Two, there was also an amount budgeted but not received from other government agencies, 48 million from FLOCA, 140,108,573 from NARIC, and 117,522,673 from NAV CDP. And then now you would add what they rolled over, which was not funded. So this comes to about 908, I believe. And then if you add now the rollover fund, you get now the difference of the 1.056. Your, I was going to call you Your Honor, your Chair, if you'll allow me just to mention this, and it's not in this audit, even right now as we speak, the standoff that we have on the RMLF, the National Assembly has withheld conditional grants to counties. For Kirinyaga, which is amongst the smallest county, there are conditional grants that have been held that haven't been disbursed is 1.2 billion. So you expect this same question again next year if that money is not funded.
Governor, how many members of National Assembly do you have in Kirinyaga County?
4.
4.
Yes.
Have you had a conversation with them regarding the importance of this money? Because the Senate has tried. I was a member of the mediation committee. Senator Wambua was a member of the mediation committee. There's a mob justice approach from the National Assembly. And the governors I've spoken with, I've asked them, why don't you talk to your members of National Assembly so that they see the sense that by bickering over RMLF, we are withholding money meant for CHPs, money meant for FLOCA, money meant for urban improvement and mineral royalties.
Yes, Governor, I hope I'm not taking up too much time. But also from the meeting we had with MCS, Chair, one of the things that they encouraged us to do is because we need, like the approach that members of the National Assembly take, if, for instance, you are to stop CDF, they go to the ground and tell people the reason why you don't have bursaries is because so-and-so, Sifuna has refused to pass CDF. We were encouraged by the members of the county assemblies to take the same approach. You, as the governor of Kirinyaga, explain to the people of Kirinyaga why the RMLF is stuck. Name those members by name. And when you go to those public forums with them, give them the mic, explain to them why they have refused to release RMLF. And then, Chair, there is a bill that is before us. There's a bill that is before the Senate to now put these funds or to entrench these funds in the Constitution, including that NGCDF. This is the time that the Senate must strike a blow, decisive blow for devolution, so that we have something that is very dear to them, but we also want certain things to be done. And let them not scare us with this thing called OCG Senate Oversight Fund. You cannot compare those two things because even if you look at the figures that are involved, it is not commensurate. So I'm hoping that as a Senate, this is going to be the opportunity for us to ensure that we resolve all those problems. If they want CDF, let them release RMLF, because there's no reason why you have members of the National Assembly running on the ground there, saying they are building roads and so on and so forth, when the Constitution is clear on these roles. So that will be our opportunity. It is a very unpopular position, but really, at least for us from my political party, the position has already been taken that we must implement the Constitution in its full, allow governors to undertake functions that are given to them, and allow the members of the National Assembly and the Senate to do that which is specifically provided for us as our mandate in the Constitution.
Yeah. So, Governor, your final thoughts on that, because we need to make progress. It's 42 billion that is being held hostage. I think it's 42 billion, and RMLF is just 10 billion. And National Assembly are saying that even if you are to amend the schedule to exclude RMLF, they still will not approve it. They want the Council of Governors to go to court and withdraw the case that is in court. I don't know whether it's the COG that filed the matter because it happened when you are the chair of the COG. For them, that is the condition precedent to any conversation.
I think, Chair, my sentiments are very similar to those of Senator Sifuna. We have to agree in this country whether we are governed by the rule of law or not. That is a decision we have to agree. We can decide we throw away the constitution and then we run the country the way we want. If we are going to do what the constitution says, which is the executive functions are vested in the national government and the county governments, then let's stick to the law. But we cannot have preferences. You know, everybody has preferences, but our preferences are not the ones that run the country. And I think it's that based on that we have said we are not going to withdraw the case of RMLF because it is an issue that is legal and in the constitution. In the event that somebody thinks that maybe a certain governor is not doing roads with that money, there is a process of audit. That's why you're here as a park committee. There is the KRB, they come and audit those roads that have been done by governors. But that cannot be the excuse to throw away the law and implement what your preference is. And the issue is not just about the 40 billion, because the 40 billion is the entire kitty on roads. There is now conditional grants for NAV, CDP, there is NARIC, there is health money, and that's what I'm saying for Kirinyaga only is about 1.2, and where the smaller counties. So that amount is close to maybe 70 billion shillings. That should be going to provide services to people on the ground. And we just have to get serious as a people and as leaders in this country. And I think many times when we not as vocal, as you say, maybe because you don't want to start looking overly confrontational, we are putting this country in a very precarious situation where today it's pulling back on devolution on the issues of roads. Tomorrow will be something else because somebody has gotten away with clawing back on the issue of RMLF. What will they not do next? And then the spirit by which I would say is the basic foundation of our Constitution 2010, which is devolution, will be finished. So I think as leaders and those leaders who are of the same mind and believe in it, we just need to put our foot down. And if we need to pay the price for it, so be it.
I know we have taken a lot of time on these preliminary matters, but they've got serious policy implications. For avoidance of doubt, the Senate and those of us who are in the mediation committee, we still hold the position that that share of RMLF should go to county governments because it's only classes A, B, and C that should be run by the national government. Classes D downwards should be county government responsibility. We also believe that this matter should be prosecuted in the courts so that we set the law, we set the basis. Otherwise, if you're going to withdraw, it will be another behind the tent arrangement that is not going to help us solve the problem. But it's going to cause considerable suffering. The devolution donor working group with whom we interact are very frustrated because they have provided resources. Some are grants, some are loans, but we have failed to put in the necessary instrument for absorption. And we are getting into the last quarter of the financial year. The National Assembly is on recess, the Senate is going on recess, and it looks like even this money, even if it was to be released, you're going to have absorption challenges. It's a very serious matter that I think the COG, Senate, National Assembly must find a way of resolving it. We have a lot of fights on things that don't matter. But on this particular one, we need to have some common approach to it because it is not Anne Waiguru's money. It is money for community health promoters. In Kwale was to get 1 billion shillings on mineral royalties. Now, if they don't get that 1 billion, where is that money going to go to? There was a county that was to get 1 billion on water. I think must have been Garissa. My county, Homa Bay, Kisip, was getting almost 1 billion. Contracts have been signed. Projects have stalled because there's no financing. And those things will come before us here. Sold projects, the Auditor General will talk of lack of value for money. So this is a huge crisis that you guys must go back and find a way for us to address it. It's bigger than the amounts of money that we are looking at here. So we will go with the recommendation of the Auditor General that pursuant to the PFM regulations, the accounting officers should ensure that budgeted receipts are realistic, but also will take the approach given by Senator Sifuna that all other entities must also play their constitutional duty. If it's Treasury to disburse, if it's Parliament to appropriate, they should do so to avoid these funding shortfalls. We will quickly go to the Receiver of Revenue report. And in the Receiver of Revenue report, there was an issue of arrears of revenue. I think that is the one we'll focus on, and then we go to the report on the executive. And arrears of revenue, there's a figure of 600 million, quite close to the other 600 million that you are dealing with in the budget. So, Auditor General, we have already said that in your Receiver of Revenue report, we must also get your findings or your report on the suitability of systems, suitability of controls, because I think, Kirinyaga, are all your revenue streams automated currently? Governor?
Yes, Chair.
You have had a change of systems not too long ago. When was your system implemented?
Last financial year to make this financial year to be fully automated.
So you are the new system in that financial year?
Yes.
Yeah, so you see, Auditor General, if the county had a new revenue collection system, really you should have given us a report on the transition, on the data migration, on the rollover, and given us the assurance that that decision was lawful and it was a decision that was aimed at efficiency. So I think there was a gap there that we don't have visibility on the systems environment. So we had already discussed that. Please take that into consideration. So let's come to the specific query on statement of arrears of revenue. Auditor General, I think this one, just read your finding quickly and then we'll get the Governor's response. We'll now move a bit faster.
Yeah, the first one on the statement of arrears, the finding was that documentary evidence supporting correction of Kenya shilling 2.5 was not provided for audit verification. And then on the same, we had additions for the year of Kenya shillings 15 million, which there were no supporting evidence on their arrears of revenue in the current year of 15.2 million. Then the third issue was the aging analysis of revenue and not been provided in the revenue statements. And then the fourth issue was the correction measures employed by the county and yield insignificant revenue correction of approximately of 1% of the opening balance of revenue.
So, Auditor General, on support of the 2.5 million, has that been provided or it's still outstanding?
That one has been provided and has been confirmed.
So, Annex 2 will provide that breakdown?
Yes.
So you are satisfied with that?
Yes, satisfied with that.
Governor, why was that not provided during audit? And I'm sure it was captured in the management letter.
Just to clarify, Chair, it's 2.5, not 25.
2.509 million. Yeah, so why, I mean, if this was available at the time of audit, why was it not provided? Because then it would sound like it was manufactured after the fact. Governor?
Chair, if I could just ask the CEO Revenue to respond to that question.
Thank you, Chair. It's correct that by the close of the audit, we did not complete and compiling of the list, but we were able to do that and submitted later to the auditor. I submit.
So that is Annex 2. What was that relating to? Because I'm seeing a very long list here. All land rates, property. Is this what explains the 2.5?
It's Annex 2, Chair.
Annex 2 sums up to 1.7 million.
Where are we?
1.795. Is this the explanation? Because we are looking at 2.509.
Yes.
No, Chair, even the CEO, when you ask the question why that had not been done during audit, he did not respond to your question. He just stated.
Yeah. So this
Sweet.
2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, could we, what do we make of this? Because you don't bring these things in vain. Ideally, this we had agreed with the Auditor General that we will not be taking new evidence. If something was not provided during audit, when it could be a forgery. So what do we make of this Annex 2 for us to say that the 2.5 is accounted for?
Where is it?
Chair, with your permission, the annex, as you have observed, gives a total amount of 1.7, which is part now of the arrears, which forms the basis of the 2.5 total.
I have a total of 1.795 at the bottom.
Where is it?
And I'm querying 2.509. So this is simple mathematics.
Sure.
So how relevant is your Annex 2?
There is another attachment with 713, 600, which shows the list of the rents and the tenants.
Yeah, Governor, just 2 minutes ago, you said all your revenue streams are automated. I would expect that land rates, property rates, etc. are all automated. So why is your officer saying they are still compiling? Because ideally this should just be pulled from the system.
These are arrears. The 700 are arrears. They are not the current.
I'm talking about the 1.795 because the listing, the description there is land rates, property rates. Is it still your position that you have automated all your streams, including land rates and property rates?
This is from this. Do you want to respond? This is from the system, Chair. Even if you look at the document, it's.
Yes. If it is from the system, why was the Auditor General not given at that time? Your officer says you are still compiling. Why do you need to compile when you are automated?
Thank you, Chair. In the course of compiling, we are reconciling so that we can give a verified figure to the auditor.
But, you know, this thing is as easy as election results.
Right.
Now you are behaving like Chebukati, saying that the returns came and you are still reconciling. If these things are in the system, if property rates are paid in the system, when the Auditor General comes, you just click and you get an XLS to support 2.5. And the auditor was there for a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, and this was not provided. You bring it to the Senate. How sure are we that this piece of paper was not just made somewhere on Kirinyaga Road?
Chair, if I may respond to that question as to why the documents were not submitted on time. What happens with the receiver of revenue at the close of every month? The money collected in various bank accounts is swiped directly to the CRF. At the closure of financial year, there are still some accounts which are collecting, yet that money, because of the deadline of 31st, the money has not been swiped. So when the auditor comes, he only gets the receipt as of that deadline. So, and that is what contributed to the deficit of 15. However, when we got the management letter, by that time the system was fully audited and we were able to provide the additional supporting documents that auditor requested.
Auditor General, are you satisfied with, first of all, when you look at that schedule, are you able to vouch for its authenticity and its source? Because for me, it is not headed, there's no description. It might just be any other piece of paper.
For us, we may not be able to authenticate the documents. But the first one looks like it's generated from the system, which is Kiripe. But the second one is like a manual listing, the one for 700,000.
Okay, now, even if you are to put that in abeyance for a moment, the second limb, documentary evidence supporting additions in arrears of 15 million. Has that been provided to you?
That one has not yet provided.
This has not been provided. Governor, 15 million. And you know, this should be a fairly easy exercise because I would be extremely worried if it was expenditure. But this is revenue. And revenue should be very traceable. Because you can't say that you have 15 million as arrears and you don't know what the source is. If it was expenditure, I would be extremely worried. But I'm getting more worried that you cannot trace your revenue. Where is the documentary evidence for the 15.2? Governor, you have referred to Annex 3.
Yes, Chair.
You could tell us, again, it's not headed, it could be just any other thing. You could let us know what Annex 3 is all about.
Land rates and property. So this is from the system, this one is not. So the explanation is the PBO. Yes. See the newest one. It's because this is from the system. This is
Governor, just explain to us the Annex 2. There are 3, sorry.
Additional areas.
Because additional arrears, that means those are people who owe you money, isn't it? So if you say Teresia Wamboi owes 166,000, it needs to be based on something.
Chair, I will request the CC Finance to respond on the issue of the extra revenue, the 15 million, where it came from. I think on the issue of the pay bill.
Yeah, please.
Yes, Chair, when we were collecting the land rates and when we were collecting the rentals from the various people who owes the county government, there was an additional, they were given a choice to pay either through the bank directly, not through the system because the arrears are calculated, and also the choice to pay through the pay bill. So that is why this list is not generated from the Kiripe system, but it's generated from the supporting receipts which were received as at that time. So these additional arrears came from the land rates after we had advertised for the people to clear the land rates, and also from the arrears from the housing, the people who occupy county government housing.
So, Auditor, this 15 million ought to be part of what? Accounts receivable? Has it been accounted for as such?
Yes, it has already been disclosed as in the statement of arrears.
The statement of arrears?
Yeah, one related to land rates of 13.7 million and property lent of 1.4 million.
So in your Annex 4, if you add up those totals, they come to 15 million?
Yes.
So the question is, the way that it is presented, you are not very sure of the source of the data, the way it is presented to us. It is not headed, it is not described. We just have a schedule there. But as I'd said, if it was money spent, we would be very harsh. Vice Chair.
I think, Chair, what
Sorry,
they need
Chair,
to
on
do.
what you're saying.
Just a minute, Senator Maruma. Please
Because
proceed.
I'm looking at that schedule, Annex 2, on the last page. I'm looking at 2, the land rates and property payments. Because if you are to look at the rest of these documents, which are not even stamped and so on, when the cash deposit is, when we pay through cash deposit, say on the page that reads 713 million, the total.
Yes.
There is 17 million paid by Mary Duku, the Guku Miano.
On?
How would you authenticate this 17,500 was paid if you don't have a bank statement, for example? I'm saying, when these payments are done, not through the system, and the cash.
So that we are better informed. It's easy to say that the business environment or the economic climate is bad, but you might find that your GCP grew. I don't know whether you have those figures, because you're supposed to maintain county statistics. Yeah. So was there GCP growth in that year?
I would need to confirm that, but if there is a growth, it would be minimal. However, the statistics are done by the KNBS and they're given to us.
Ideally, counties are supposed to maintain their own statistics. Actually, it's in the 4th schedule. It's one area that you have failed to do. I know we have failed to pass the county statistics bill, but it is a power that you have. Sometimes we think KNBS cooks the numbers.
We are currently, they're doing a collaboration with several counties. Kirinyaga is one of them, where they are doing for us our statistical abstract, where we provide the technical support to collect the actual data, but the compilation and analysis is done by KNBS. I would have to look at the issue of the growth to see whether it is reflective of the.
Yeah, I think that can come
OSM.
from an independent assessment, either from OAG or from the Treasury. Members, any further contributions on ROR?
Yes. On the on-source revenue, Chair, this is my worry. My worry, Governor, is that, and I know you, at some point, you served in the Treasury, and the rollout of devolution. And I think the focus for this country in terms of devolution was that we will get to a point that counties will generate a lot more income to sustain their own operations and rely less on exchequer releases from the national government. That's an ambition. I don't know what, maybe we'll get there somehow. The biggest challenge that I have is that 2 things. One, almost every county overprojects when it comes to on-source revenue. Almost every county, by almost 50%, they overproject. That, of course, has a contribution to the pending bills conversation. But secondly, I don't know how many counties, whether your county has done this. Madam Governor, I had an opportunity to visit a city in Canada, Quebec. And I found a business lady who really amazed me. She said, we pay this amount of money to government in terms of tax. And personally, I'll be willing to pay even more because I see where my taxes go. Yeah. My children are going to school. I'm not paying nothing. The government is transporting them to school. If I fall sick, the government will definitely fix my bills. So even if they ask me to pay more, I will have no problem with that. Is it the case that governments, both local and national, have failed to demonstrate where the taxes they are collecting from people are going, and that is the reason why people will be unwilling to contribute to their own government? Because I expect that the government of Kirinyaga is for the people of Kirinyaga. So is it the case that people feel that they don't see where these taxes are going? And as you respond, please take note, and maybe I said you worked in the Treasury. I'm personally in the process of trying to bring a bill, and I hope it will find favor with you and other governors, to completely divorce the National Treasury and the Ministry of Finance, so that it is not one child being overfed and another child being starved from the national level. But talk to me about this overprojection of OSR all the time in all the counties, including Kirinyaga.
Governor, brief response.
Chair, on the issue of the overprojection, I think I explained earlier, sometimes it's pressure on what you need to fund. Sometimes it's being overly optimistic that the situation would improve, and therefore people project a lot more. The third issue sometimes is just an overestimation of your capability. Like in my view, I would want to see what it is I would be taxing to get to 1 billion shillings collection in Kirinyaga. Now, on the second question of shouldn't the counties be able to generate adequate OSR to be able to become less reliant on the national government, I think the model of our constitution never envisaged that the counties would be completely independent, because we are not autonomous, fully federal. If we were, we would be collecting all taxes at the county level. Then we would be responsible for providing all services at the county level. Pay as you earn, for example, is collected at the county level and by the national government. Hotels, taxes are collected by the national government. AFA taxes are collected by the national government. So the national government collects the bulk of the taxes. So what the counties are left to collect are the small fees in the market and those kind of taxes. And those taxes can never be sufficient to run a county completely independent of the national government. And that's why I said the framers of our constitution never envisioned that we would be completely federal. We are a quasi system, which is half, where certain functions are still carried by the national government and certain functions are carried by the county, and the issue of revenue collection is shared, with the bulk of the revenue collection being by the national government and very minimal by the county government. And that's why they provided for the National Treasury to have a formula with the National Assembly and Senate of providing resources to the counties. Now, of course, if then therefore that answers the question, is that why people are not willing to pay tax at the county level? I think I've responded to that, saying that people pay as much tax as the law provides, but the counties were never meant to be fully independent. On the issue of the National Treasury, I support that decision as former technocrat of the National Treasury. I think that it should be an independent institution, which then is not biased or under direction of the national executive with regard to how much resources should be allocated, or even the provision of the supervision or even oversight rules that the Treasury provides. They should be completely independent of both the national executive and the county executive. And I believe it would be a good move. Whether you'll be able to convince your colleagues at the national level to pass it is another story.
No, I think that can be done through an executive order. It's a president who allocates responsibilities to various ministries, and that's an executive decision that can be made. It does not require a lot. I don't think the PFM, because I've seen you are flanked by, that gentleman introduced himself as chief officer in charge of
Economic planning, budget, and procurement.
And there was another chief officer in charge of treasury or revenue, finance. And, for you to designate them, you didn't need any legal or statutory amendments. It's your executive order in the manner in which you want to organize your team. But let's not...
The issue is not so much, sorry, Chair. I think the issue is not so much the roles they carry, but for them to have the independence to make certain decisions that are usually prescribed by the executive.
Okay. Senator Maruma?
Yeah, maybe, Chair, mine would just be a question to the auditor and how they audit this on-source revenue, because we've observed, Chair, that single business permits, we had a dip of, in terms of collection, of about 10 million. Property rent, we had a dip in collection from 52 million to 42 million, also 10 million. Auditor, how do you then ascertain that what the explanation by the governor gives in terms of the anecdote that they collected less because of hard economic times, and so most of the businesses were closed, so then expectedly would have lower collection in terms of single business permits. What type of information do you need to get so that you can verify that? Because then, if you captured this dip in collection of revenue as an audit query, then the management would come with a response that these number of businesses were closed, and so the revenue expected is this list, so that then you can have a confirmation in terms of data, not just maybe the anecdotal evidence that is being given or the conjectures that we're getting from the management. How do you audit this? Because now we want to assist the executive to collect more money. And we need real-time data to show that the dipping in terms of collection was as a result of, yes, number one, hard economic times, and you had this number of businesses that are closed, and it accounted for this amount of money that is not collected.
Auditor General, from your responsibility under 2296, how do you help Parliament on that?
Thank you, Chair. To respond to the honorable member, I say that if you look at the revenue projections for the county for the year under review, they're under an estimate of 550 million, and they collected 650 million. So in totality, there was an increase in terms of revenue collections. But now on our query, we were querying the issue of arrears, which has never been corrected. And this one has arisen because of the two revenue streams, which is the RAD rates, which has the major components of the revenue in arrears. And then the other one is property rent.
Chair, I'm not talking about the arrears. I'm just talking about comparison of 2022-23 and 2023-2024. That there was less revenue collected in business permits from 109 to 97, and a decrease of 10 million. And so if you had queried it here, why the collection in business permits went down, then the management would have responded and shown why there is that dip, and given even data to cater for or to account for that decrease.
Actually, what Senator Maruma is saying, you need to be more analytical on this. We have already stated the other areas that one touch, the systems environment, the controls. You also need to be more analytical, comparing current and prior year, because if the economy is growing, then certain lines are dropping, then it's indicative of a leakage. That, in my view, would be the cause. It's not just about economic downturn that is affecting one line and not affecting the others, because it then all needs to be proportional, including parking fees. You need to see a related drop or a related gain. So the challenge you are putting to you is be more analytical. We have not paid a lot of attention to the receipt of revenue reports in the past. And the requirement to report separately has been with us. I think now this is the third financial year. Previously, it was part of the executive report. So now that it's a separate report, we need more depth in understanding the on-source revenue performance and practices in the county government. I think this is something that even when we are doing our implementation follow-up, we will also be asking you questions around the controls, the security that the system has. And we need to have the assurance that even things like downtime do not affect it, and that there are no manual overrides that allow people to continue picking cash rather than doing it in an automated way. So I think the last thing here, which is a direct question to the governor, is the Kamweti ATC facility. The Auditor General says it is providing services, but it is not reporting the revenue. Who is eating the money from Kamweti ATC? That is the last question on the receipt of revenue. This should be a straight one. I've read your response, but it has not addressed the issue of the money coming from catering, accommodation, and conference facilities at Kamweti has not been accounted for. Where is the money collected at Kamweti going?
I think the question.
The thrust of the question is Kamweti ATC had not reported any revenue from catering, accommodation, and conference facilities in the previous and current year of audit. That is the issue. Where is the money collected at Kamweti going?
The response is the facility has been accredited as a TVET training institute, whereby the institution is now offering training in the facility. Further, the conference facility is now functional and therefore favorable for hosting meetings and workshops. The institution, having been fully established as a fund, now has a board of directors in place who are mandated to effectively oversee the management of the institution.
Now, the English there has been and is now and is now and is now. What about the period when all these had not happened? Where was the money going? Because what you have given us is the corrective measures. What about the money that was collected and not reported?
You have money that you collected. What do you want to answer? Let me request the CC to respond to that question because they're more familiar with it.
Yeah, please quickly. We have bigger issues to deal with.
Thank you, Chair. The question here is underutilization because the facility, the Kamweti institution had those facilities, yet they are not operationalizing them or they are not using them to one's meaningful gain of revenue. And the explanation is during this year of audit, that facility was dormant because it didn't have a board in place, which now we have fully.
The auditor has told us that it was operational. That is the auditor who came to the ground. So don't confuse us. We have not come to the ground. The auditor was Kamweti ATC operational at the time of your audit. Auditor?
Operational.
Yes, it was. It was operational. Were catering services being offered?
No, no, Chair.
Was accommodation being offered? Were conference facilities being offered?
The operationalizing of Kamweti, what I mean is it was operational for agricultural extension, like giving the trainings and the extension services.
Does Kamweti have catering facilities?
It does.
Does it have accommodation services for 25 people?
Yes, it does.
Does it have a conference facility of 50?
Yes.
Were these services being offered during the period under review?
They didn't offer any services. They didn't attract any business to use those facilities as at that time.
Auditor General?
That is the explanation we got, because at the time of audit in October 2024, the facility was operational. But during the year under review, there were no evidence of any corrections emanating from these two revenue streams, that is catering and conference facilities. So we were not sure whether during that year they were operational.
So
That
what is
from
this
July.
6.6 million that was disclosed?
This is from agricultural products and dairy products.
From agricultural and?
Dairy products.
Now, Governor, despite all these answers that are sounding clever, are you concerned about the management of this facility? Because if it has all this potential, you can imagine having a hotel with 25 bed capacity, with 50 conference facility, and you would expect to make money, even if this was a small private business. What is, from what I'm hearing from the Auditor General, is that these services were offered, money was collected, it was never reported. No. And it looks like small money. Wizi wa pesa kidogo kidogo.
I think
even before the governor goes, these agricultural training centers are all over in Kenya. If you go to Lamu, they do training, but also there are hospitality facilities. If you go to Kitui, they do training, but there are these facilities. So when was it started, Kamweti Animal Training Center? Is it in 2023? Is it in 2010? Because I cannot think of a facility that was opened in 2010. They are doing training without giving catering. How the training happened, really?
Let me explain, attempt to explain. It's not the training that you're thinking, like the training of this level. It is training when farmers come to be taught, for example, how to graft, how to milk. So it is not a high-end institute. And it's an old facility. It's not a new facility that was built recently. So we just put a board to help in the management, but that is where we teach farmers how to do fish farming. We have fish ponds. Then we teach them how to graft. If you're teaching them how to put fertilizer, we have a demo farm, how to take care of coffee. So that is, it's not for external people to come and sleep. It's mostly for farmers to come and see demonstrations.
Let me ask the Governor. I think in your last statement, last paragraph, you are saying it is established as a fund. What does it mean?
It was established last year.
Because when you talk of fund, you must have a legislation, and there must be some regulations. And again, there should be some money revolving there. I don't know whether it's from the county or from the income that you are getting from the facility. Maybe you need to give us proper explanation of that.
So we did that last year and set up the board so that we can try and commercialize those services that we've been providing, the extension, agriculture-related extension services or training services. But prior to last year, there was no board and there was no fund. It was just a training
What is the current
place.
status?
Do you respond?
The institute has now been, through the various regulations by the county Department of Agriculture, which was adopted by the executive and passed on to the county assembly. It is now fully established as a Kamweti Agricultural Institute with a fund that is to ensure that the monies which are collected within that institution are safeguarded to improve the services within that institution.
So there's fund coming in now.
Yes, there's a fund coming in now starting in this financial year, so that they can make more money and also they can be able to use the same money within the same institution.
As I said, all those are corrective measures.
Yes.
Auditor General, was money collected and not reported? That's what I'm interested in. That is what you are telling me here. They had not reported any revenue from various services. Is that a fact? Or that was speculation?
During the 2 years of audit, there were no revenue reported coming from the conference facilities. And
were the services utilized during that period? Can you confirm?
Normally we are not there throughout the year.
But by the time you're telling me no revenue was reported, then you should also be saying the services were offered, but no revenue was reported.
Yes, during the month of October, when we visited the facility, we found these services are being offered.
These services are being offered?
Yes.
Yeah, so then that means, Governor, because you have not addressed yourself to the actual issue raised by the auditor, you are telling us the things you are doing in future, setting up a fund, setting up a board, building efficiencies. But you see, these are the things that make people have a bad view of devolution, because you find someone running this ATC and everyone knows that he's collecting the money and pocketing. And then EACC in their matrix will say that 6 million is too little in the matrix. EACC will never go after them because there are people stealing 200, 300 million. But we have to restore hope to the people that if you're running a public facility, it is not private property for you to charge and then pocket. Now, this is what I want the Auditor General to come out very clearly, that services were offered, the revenue was not recognized, and therefore we declare those who are managing that facility thieves who should be investigated and prosecuted. I think that's the only conclusion.
And you see, Chair, when we look at the management response, the Governor should hear this. Madam Governor, you need to hear this.
Governor, there's a comment that requires your attention.
I see the CECM is doing here what she is supposed to have done in Kirinyaga. That's fine. So I'm saying, Chair, when you look at the management response, and let's be honest, Governor, that you have actually decided, or the person that responded, that is your CCM, decided to answer their own question. The issue that was raised by the auditor is not addressed in that response. In your response, you are telling us what now you have started doing and what you'll be doing going into the future. The issue raised by the auditor is what you did not do. Governor, would it be fair to just say that there is an admission on the part of the county government of Kirinyaga
not collecting and not doing it.
You know, one of the reasons why people get to answer questions wrongly is because they don't get the question. People are busy conversing and we are asking questions. So you're wondering whether we should first give you time to converse, then we ask questions, or we'll ask questions and then you can.
Okay, Senator, proceed through the chair. And Governor, we need your attention.
Through the chair. Is this response then an admission on the part of the county government of Kirinyaga that actually money was collected from this training center, which money was not disclosed at the time of the audit? Beyond the money that you're saying, the 6 million which you're saying it was from, lower level training. Is it the position of the county government of Kirinyaga that, as the Auditor General says, when they went there, the catering services, accommodation services were being offered, and that's what he said. It's just your word against his word. Yeah, you see, they were being offered. Yeah, there is no evidence that they were not being offered through the chair. So is it true that money was collected and put or not disclosed? Because that's a question. You have not responded to that question.
Chair, I think allow me to clarify what the question is. The question is on underutilization of the facility. They have not said that money was collected. They said there's a kitchen, there is beds, but it didn't say that the services were being offered. We've just said that we've just established a board to start running the
Governor,
facility.
order.
If you had listened to what the Auditor General said in additional information, is that when they came there in October, those facilities were being used. That's what he said.
Can the auditor confirm that they found people in a conference and people sleeping in that?
You see, Governor, in your response, you have talked of measures to correct. You have not provided that description that you are giving us now. If there is nowhere in your response, you have said during the period under review, those services were not offered. You have just said the facility has been accredited, the facility is now functional, the facility is now a fund, the facility now has a board of directors. And is also hosting workshops and meetings. Honorable members, let's not belabor the point. Our recommendation would be for investigation and prosecution of the small thieves. The Bible talks of the small foxes that can destroy an entire vineyard. And it is the thieves of the 6 millions and the Kamwetis that can bring down an entire county. So we shall take the word of the Auditor General that these services were offered but not reported. We now go to the executive report. There are more weightier issues there, bigger than the 6 million of Kamweti. The report of the Auditor General on the County Executive of Kirinyaga. Auditor General, this was a qualified opinion. We have already looked at the key highlights and we shall deal with the things that, in your view, are still unaddressed. Let's go to the basis of your opinion. Auditor, please, you need to move with speed. Our intention was to be out of here by 2:30, but we need to move faster.
The first issue on the basis of opinion.
Just read it. Read your first issue there.
Variance between financial statement balances and integrated financial management information system, IFMIS report. Comparison of the financial statements and IFMIS report. The financial statement for the year ended 30 June 2024 reflect account balances that are at variance with the corresponding account balances generated from IFMIS and summarized below. We have compensation of employees, which has a variance of 6.5 million. Use of goods and services, a variance of 65.5 million. Acquisition of assets, negative 19.2 million. Other payments, negative 64.5 million. In the circumstances, the accuracy and the completeness of the respective payment amounts reflected in the statement of receipt and payment could not be confirmed.
And having considered Annex 1 and Annex 1B presented by the county, you are still, are you satisfied that those variances have been addressed, or what is your current position?
We have the adjusted trial balance, which has reconciled the variances. However, the supporting evidence in terms of journal vouchers explaining the variances, and also the authorization documents supporting the journal vouchers, which has not been annexed.
Because I don't want to spend the whole day here, and perhaps even live on TV, talking about IFMIS and trial balances. And yet we have projects that are gobbling up public resources. So, Governor, why can't your officers provide the JVs supporting the adjustments so that this matter can be resolved? You have done the adjustments, but the journal vouchers need to be presented. And the authorization, it's a very, very simple thing. Are they available? Governor, if
the auditor didn't see them, then they're not available. What is the CEC looking for?
They're checking whether they have them here. This is they're available, but they're not here.
And this be provided to the Auditor General for verification? Because
Can I
fine,
get
you can do the
commitment?
adjustments, you can do the reconciliation, but it's a JV that has the details on what to debit and credit.
They will provide them to the Auditor General.
Unfortunately, we don't have too much time, so I hope, and this is not one of those things where we say in 7 days. I think by tomorrow, your team and the Auditor General should look at those JVs, because we must report to the House by next week.
Noted, Chair.
Yeah, because if they are available, then my next question will be moot. Because I was going to ask why then don't we have full harmony between IFMIS and financial statements? I was going to ask the question that I've asked you every time you've appeared before us. Why is IFMIS not working in county governments? But in this case, the auditor is saying that a reconciliation has been done and it's possible for IFMIS to tie with financial statements. Are there any other challenges that might be there?
Chair, the issue of the occurring issue of IFMIS and the financial statements is the issue of the closure of the financial year, where the financial statements are done as of 30th of June, whereas the system opening can be extended to July because of exchequer delays. Other than that, ideally it should be okay.
Okay, so we'll begin to see that your update.
Period to 15th July. So this should be part of that year's revenue or the rounding must be combined with the other year's amount. But there is a grace period. It may not be possible for us to do it by that 30th June of it, but still Treasury gives a grace period.
Yeah, Treasury does a circular that sometimes gives counties about 15 days, even though sometimes it overflows because of lateness in disbursements of exchequer. Sometimes it comes in July, mid of July. So I think for those of us in this space, we need to review those processes and those procedures. But at the end of the day, even if the county is talking of 30th of June, they have up to 30th of September to complete their reporting. So I think this one, the right response really ought to have been that the reconciliations have been done, the journals supporting the reconciliations are available, and the approvals are available. And that would close the story. If you foray into what the National Treasury has done or has not, it might open a can of worms. But we would be happy to say that there's this county where IFMIS and financial statements tie. I think, Auditor General, this has been a finding in almost every county. And we waste a lot of time here discussing IFMIS, system and hypothetical issues, and then don't go to the projects that benefit the people. So this one, you'll give us your advice tomorrow. If you see the JVs and authorizations, we can say that action has been taken. If you don't see the JVs and authorizations, we'll also make an adverse recommendation. Now, members, that can allow us to go to the issue of revenue collectors' allowances. I think this was quite interesting. Auditor General, read your finding. Just read it verbatim.
So, irregular payment of revenue collectors' allowances. The financial statements reflect Kenya shillings 61.1 million, 61,192,117 in respect of domestic travel and subsistence allowance amounting to, as disclosed in Note 4. The balance includes payments amounting to Kenya shillings 4 million 301,100 shillings paid to revenue officer at various rates through various payment platform for breakfast allowances for officers working during weekends period, allowances for working and official working hours, and taxi services payments. However, there is no approved policy to guide on the basis of the rate of payments. In the circumstances, the validity and accuracy of the payments of allowances amounting to amount of Kenya shillings 4,301,100 shillings could not be confirmed.
Governor, what's your response?
Chair, allowances for revenue officers was based on the rates provided by SRC for lunches to officers working within the county and undertaking extra work beyond the stipulated office workers. The county has also written to SRC seeking the latest guidelines on the payment of allowances to revenue officers working beyond the official working hours as per the attached letter to SRC, see Annex 2, SRC circular and letter. I submit, Chair.
Now, Governor, of the 4 million spent on breakfast, you have not told us who ate what, who ate a million, who ate 2 million, who ate 3 million. Where is that breakdown? We are talking of 4 million casually spent on breakfast and taxis for revenue collectors. The minimum you should have told us is Mr. X ate breakfast worth 10,000, Mr. Y ate breakfast worth 20,000. And then if we are pronouncing ourselves, we say, surcharge Mr. X, surcharge Mr. Y. Where is that breakdown? This is a sick joke. Spending 4 million on breakfast for revenue officers, your systems are already automated. You'd expect that you do not need a lot of manual labor. You don't need ugali for them to go and collect, because that only happens in counties where they're still collecting using rungus and a basket. So can you tell us how this 4 million was spent on breakfast and lunches for revenue collectors? Unless members you have seen it, because for me, Annex 2 is just a letter that has been photocopied from SRC. Has anyone seen the breakdown to see who ate lunch worth 4 million? Governor?
Chair, the information was provided to the auditors, to the best of my knowledge, according to the CEC. The question was on the justification of the payment, not for the provision of the list.
But it starts from there, Governor. You have been in the cabinet, and you know that when you go to Parliament, there are supplementary questions. We are not robots. We are going to ask further details, and that ought to be provided to Parliament. It is unconscionable for us just to say that we spent 4 million on breakfast, and because there was policy. Was it spent by one person, 2 people, 100 people, 200 people? That is very basic information that we need to know.
Actually, Chair, when you talk about regularity,
Order, Governor,
can be answered by that letter, but on the accuracy, we need maybe more information, like the list of the beneficiaries.
Yes, Governor.
Regularity and accuracy.
Proceed, Governor.
The auditors had the list. That's why they made reference to it.
We are asking as Parliament, Article 2293 requires us to consider, debate, and take appropriate action. That is our duty. The auditor has already discharged their mandate. We are now in a constitutional phase. So you cannot tell us the auditor saw it. Then why are we here? Unless we are here to waste each other's time.
And especially, Chair, we also needed to know even the schedule of the workers who are working beyond the stipulated time to warrant these allowances.
The list will be provided, Chair.
We do not have the luxury of time, again, because we must conclude this process by 31st of March. If by tomorrow, when we are adopting these minutes or adopting this report, that list has not been provided, this will be a surcharge. It will be considered as theft of public resources. Honorable members, we proceed to training expenses. Again, expenditure not supported. We have said in the past that where expenditure has not been supported at the time of audit, this committee is not going to be taking evidence. Because if evidence was not provided to the Auditor General and it's being brought to the Senate, it might as well have been forged or cooked. Now, Auditor General, under training expenses, you had cited about 7 vouchers, and you have told us that voucher number 2 and voucher number, is it 5 and 7 or 2 and 7, that have not been addressed?
2 and 5.
2 and 5. 2 and 5. That is list of participants to justify 600,000 and evidence of participants to justify 750,000. Governor, we are dealing with 1.3 million, so I hope we can do that in 1 minute. Could you tell us why voucher number 1111 and voucher number 3089, the required accountability has not been provided? Is it a statement of fact that those 2 vouchers, the supporting documentation has not been provided, Governor? There were 7. The auditor said they are happy with 5. Let's just drill down to the 2. And because it's, as I said, it's 1.3 million, let's not spend too much time on it.
It's provided in the Annex 3.
Annex 3 has the TVs for all the...
3B.
Auditor General, are you able to see that?
I don't have it.
Governor, you may tell us what 3B is all about.
3B
is it B for boy or D for Dodoma?
B for boy.
3B.
It's a payment voucher for Beckham Hotel for 600,000. And 3E is also a payment voucher, the same hotel for 750,000.
Auditor General, starting with 3B, had you seen this before?
Yes, we have seen the one for 661,000.
This is 660.
Let's start with 3B. 3B of 600,000. Because you had said you had not seen the justification.
It's the one for 661. 661, not the one for 600.
So it's not 2 and 5, it is 1 and 5.
Yes.
Okay, so Governor, with the same efficiency, where's the TV for the 661?
It's in my file. I don't know whether it's in my file.
As well as for the 750. Please, let's move fast. We have a hospital project worth 137 million to deal with. So 1.3 million should not take us too long.
Sorry.
Yes, Auditor.
The payment voucher is there, but now the number of participants were different for whatever was invoiced. Like in that case, the number of participants were 162 in the invoice, but the number of participants in the attendance sheet was 136. So there was they were not fully supported.
You know, Governor, these are the things we dislike dealing with. You know, PVs of 600, PVs of 750. It even belittles the role of the Senate because these are things of documentation. these guys flagged this matter in the management letter. This matter was in the draft audit report. And so if up to now the schedule of participants is not available, then it is what it is. It is an irregular charge on public funds. There's nothing we can cure here. And we don't find it very elegant out of a total budget of 5 billion, spending 10 minutes on 1.3 million. Governor?
From my understanding of from the auditor is that the list is available. Only on the list, you have less people than you expected. So you have 139 instead of 160.
136 instead of 162.
Instead of 162. So the list was not
Where
so
did
I
you get,
needed to clarify
under
that.
Governor, Auditor, where did you get 162 from?
We added up the list which is provided here in the various sheets for the various dates.
So according to your evidence, the evidence that you have seen, 162 people benefited from the training.
That's correct.
And the county has provided a schedule of 136.
136.
But the amount remains the same.
Yes.
Why do you have different evidence?
The 162 is in the invoice, which was paid, and then the supporting attendance sheet.
What's the average per capita cost?
2,500.
2,500. What was this? What activity was this, Governor?
This was 3,000.
Was it public participation? Was it reimbursements for training?
Training on the system, on the revenue management system for 5 days.
So maybe the question, Chair, is where did the other money go to? Because the invoice is for more people than the actual list of the people participated.
You know, these kind of queries, Governor, they do not, just a minute, Governor, they do not utilize our mental capacity properly. You know, you come all the way to Nairobi for us to count how many people are paid 2,500. It's a misuse of the Senate and the resources and the time of the Senate. These things should be dealt with at audit, at management letter level. By the time they come to Nairobi and they are unresolved, there should be no discussion. We should just be saying you paid money without accountability. You should be investigated and prosecuted. Surely, we really want, and you have seen our interaction has improved over the years. We want to talk about bigger policy issues, not counting how many people came into a meeting. And you know, it is very frustrating. So we either take the word of the Auditor General that this is an improper charge, or you tell us that you've got the proper list somewhere, present it to the Auditor General for them to advise us on the way forward. Because I don't think I went to school to come and deal with such issues between 162 and 136 being paid 2,500. Governor.
Okay. I will say the explanation that's given by the officer. He says, when you book a venue, you say we are booking the venue for 160 people. If you come with 140, they still charge you for 160 because that is what they, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, so the people who attended the actual conference, the people who were trained, were
Governor, was that explanation given to the auditor at the time
Let me finish,
of
Chair,
audit?
please. Yeah.
Because
so that is what they should have explained to the auditor. The explanation to the auditor, they just gave the list of the people who attended, who are the 136, you know? And then the auditor said, but you're paying the hotel for 160, isn't it? So then he said you should have paid for 136. So the explanation of why you still pay for 160 is based on how you booked the venue. Because whether you utilize it or not, if you're booked and they had...
Auditor, was that explanation offered at the management letter level? Because I hear what you're saying. If it was explained, I believe the auditor is reasonable. This thing would not have come to Nairobi. So is it the first time you are hearing that explanation?
When I look at the response for management letter, it was not stated that way.
Yeah, I think we are generally not happy this afternoon.
I think, Chair, you put it very well when you started this conversation. I think there are really weighty issues that are awaiting our discussion on this county government. Why don't you just give a ruling on this matter, Chair, and we move on? Because clearly this is not the place where the management will explain the variances. There was opportunity to do that. It was not done.
Yeah, because the management response is the management hereby resubmits the list of participants, training, correspondence, and relevant supporting documents for review.
Admitted Chair, the governor is trying to introduce new evidence. I think in your response to that matter before us, which is not the right thing to do.
I think when you look at even the amounts involved, this we will make a recommendation that administrative action needs to be taken internally.